the kitchen now with a local pastry chef known for her amazing desserts, her gorgeous over-the-top wedding cakes, but now you're welcome, has a catering business too that she'll do hors d'oeuvres, luncheons, cocktail parties, packer parties, you name it, she will do it. Fancy, elegant holiday parties. But she and her husband still are a sucker for a good tuna melt, right?
Who isn't in the mood for a good tuna melt, especially if it gets a little cold outside or you're just having one of those days where you want a warm sandwich? You probably have all these ingredients in your house and you can throw it together on a budget.
And I think too, sometimes a soup and sandwich at the end of the day for dinner, it's almost a treat, like you said. You know, it is. Tuna melt and reminds me of my dad. My dad and I used to go out to coffee shops back when they were just not coffee houses, they were coffee shops, you know what I mean? And he'd get a patty melt and I'd get a tuna melt, you know? I mean, it's one of those things you don't see it on a lot of menus these days.
You don't, and I think people shy away from canned tuna. You know, and there's really nothing wrong with canned tuna. Dress it up with a little bit of something and it can really be something to treat yourself to. Low fat, and again, something that you probably have in your cupboard you can work with.
And if the weather's cold, warm it up and it takes it to a whole nother level. That's why I love tuna melt. That's one of those things we talked about, keeping things in your pantry. I like canned tuna. I make a mean tuna casserole, and so I usually have a couple cans in my pantry.
I typically pick them up, and they might sit there for a while, but then there's a day that I'm craving something like this, and I definitely am glad to have it in my cupboard. So
good deal.
And I usually just buy the chunk stuff, the all white chunk meat. It doesn't really matter, but this is going to have a little bit more flavor for you that I like to pull on through.
The albacore tuna, I buy that too, packed in water, and when it goes on sale, you know, that's a good time to stock up by a few cans. So I'm just kind of flaking that up.
Yeah, you want to break it up a little bit. That stuff that's in a can is pretty condensed because it's cooked in the can. So you're just going to take a fork, kind of flake it a little bit. One of my secret ingredients is artichoke. So I always have a couple jars of marinated artichokes in our cupboard. So tuna, artichoke, seems like it might be a little unique. It's fantastic. You've got the tanginess of the marinated artichokes to go with the cheese and the tomatoes and the Dijon mustard. It's a really nice fit together.
Sounds good to me.
I'm going to chop up these quartered artichokes.
And by the way, they're cheap. I remember years ago they used to be expensive, cans of artichokes or jars of marinated artichokes. Not anymore. People use them all the time, and you can pick up a jar for under $1.50 or so.
Yep,
you know?
Absolutely.
Throw them into salads. All of a sudden, your salads gets a little more exciting.
So you're doing 1 can of tuna and 1 jar of artichokes. So it's a pretty good high ratio of artichokes with your tuna. And then you've got a tablespoon of just regular mayonnaise.
Okay.
And a nice tablespoon of Dijon mustard. We have a strong French Dijon mustard in our house.
And lemon juice?
Lemon juice, just about a teaspoon or so of some fresh lemon juice.
And that really, canned tuna I think can be a little fishy. So that lemon juice really helps.
Cleans it up a little bit for sure. So Amy, I'm going to slide these artichokes in there and you can mix that all in there. And like I said, it's a lot of artichokes to the tuna. It's about a 50-50 ratio, but that's how I like it.
I'm good with that.
And then you want to put in a pinch of salt and pepper. Not too much on the salt. You do have first a canned product. Second of all, the lemon juice and artichokes are going to give some tang. But you do want to put a little bit in to help round out the flavors, and a nice amount of cracked black pepper for me.
Wait, all of a sudden this tuna salad's looking kind of fancy. I'm all about it, especially when we warm it up. I'm thinking the idea of like a warm artichoke dip with the mayonnaise in here.
Absolutely. So I'm going to slice, well actually I'll get the bread going for you, Amy, so you can get that ready. So any type of cookie sheet you have or flat pan that you have, you're going to go ahead and put down 2 pieces of bread, or 4 is what the recipe will make for you.
Do you usually do these open face?
I usually do them open faced, only because I tend to like quite a bit of tuna to my bread ratio.
And spray the tops with the cooking spray as well?
Yeah, so you want to spray the cookie sheet and then the tops of the bread. And then you're just going to divide that 4 ways, Amy.
Why spray the tops of the bread?
Because the tuna, I like to have a nice crispy outside to it, and things will dry out if they don't have fat on them. So if you spray the top, the oil actually toasts the bread rather than dries out the bread.
Okay.
And then we're going to slice some tomatoes to go on top.
That's the other part I like about tuna melt. I love tomato and I love warming it up.
Yep.
It's just yummy.
And the acidity of the tomato kind of falls into the tuna there a little bit, so you get kind of a nice flavor that direction as well.
Thinking a nice bowl of tomato soup with this, and yeah, I'm a happy camper.
Absolutely. nice to have it for dinner. You're not quite as full afterwards.
And it's easy. Not a lot of dishes to do.
Yeah, and it can be something that can be thrown together. So
Yep,
if you had to work late and you had to get something on the table, this is something that would really work well for that.
Okay.
So as far as the amount of tomato, I tend to like a lot of tomato with that artichoke mixture. So I normally do 4 tomato slices.
A little salt and pepper on top of that again?
Sure. Can't go wrong when you have salt and pepper or raw tomato.
I think it makes a difference, especially when the tomatoes aren't in season. They need something.
They
little
do
something.
need something,
Yeah.
for sure. And then as far as whatever cheese you have in the house works, I personally like Munster. Munster's a semi-soft cheese, easy to melt, and it kind of toasts very well. And I typically do just that 1 slice, but I make sure to cover up the tomatoes with it. And these are going to go under your broiler. So if I make the tuna salad the day of and I'm going to heat them right away, I just put them under the broiler. If you made the tuna salad or you had leftover tuna salad from something, you may have to put them in the oven at about 450 for 5-10 minutes. But underneath the broiler for 2 or 3 minutes, just until the cheese starts to bubble and get a little toasty. Again, the sides of the bread get a little crunchy too. It's the perfect tuna melt for me anyway.
Oh, it sounds so good. So we're going to get these under the broiler, keep a close eye on them. Tell us what we're making next time.
So there's also one of my favorite things to make, what I typically have at home, is frozen bananas. So I make banana bread, but I always have oatmeal floating around because that's what I eat for breakfast every day. So I've got my banana oatmeal bread, but it's really super easy. There shouldn't be any challenging products that you have to go out and buy. You should have them in the cupboard. It's one of those things you can make early on a Saturday morning and have for lunch.
That sounds good. So stick around. Lindsay's homemade oatmeal banana bread, again, using stuff you probably already have in your pantry and super cheap to make. So stick around. We'll save you some more money. It's going to be worth it. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back.